Hey, welcome back. In this video, we're going to go ahead and start modeling a different object. And the object of this video that we're going to model is an M67 hand grenade. So, I have a couple of images we can use as reference. Let's go ahead and open those up. Hold down Alt and hit 6 on the keyboard to open up the image clip viewer. Let's go to File, Import, and the image you want to look for is the image called M67 Grenade. So let's open that one up. And you can see our image clip viewer here has an image of an M67 grenade from a perspective view. So we can see what it is that we're going to model. Now we're not going to model off of this image. We are going to use this as reference, but just as a visual aid. The main image we're going to use for modeling is a different one. So let's go down here to the right camera viewport down here, the lower right one, camera viewport D. Go over here to shading options and go all the way down to rotoscopy options. Open that up and then hit the new button and click on New from File. When you get the browser prompt window, go ahead and look for the image called Grenade Side, and we're going to load that one up. You can see it there in the background. Close this window. Now let's go back to our shading options and we're going to activate rotoscope over here. That activates rotoscope mode, and now we can start modeling with this image in the background of our side view, or our right view in this case. And that's what we're going to do. So let's hit F12 on the keyboard over that viewport to maximize it. I'm just going to take this image clip viewer window and I'm going to double click the blue name bar up here to tuck it away and hide it, just so it's not in my way. And we're going to start modeling this object. We're going to start off with this round area down here because it's going to be the quickest and easiest area to attack on this image. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's go to Primitive, Polygon Mesh, and we're going to go and pick up a sphere. So let's click on that. There's our sphere. Let's move that PPG out of the way. You can see we have to do some tweaking over here. So let's move the sphere down. And the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to use the scale tool and we're going to scale it down. To use the scale tool, just hit X on the keyboard. That's the shortcut. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and close this PPG up here. Don't need it anymore. So there's my sphere. Now, right now, if we hit F12 and we look in our camera viewport over here, let's change our shading options up here to shaded view. And let's hit G on the keyboard to hide the grid. And then let's grab the center border here of this viewport where my mouse icon changes from this icon to this one right here. Two double black arrows. Click and drag over here to the left so we're only working with these two views. Okay, so here's my sphere. Right now it's a low-res polygon sphere, so what I'm going to do is up-res it into a nice dense high-resolution sub D. That's very easy to do. Just use the plus key on the number pad of the keyboard. Hit that a few times to smooth that out. And the next thing we're going to do is hold down Control and hit the plus key again, and that's going to toggle on the wireframe cage. Alright, now what we need to do is activate shaded mode for this lower view down here. So let's go over here to our shading options and switch to shaded view. There's our sphere. What we need to do is scale this sphere, and I'm also going to go over here to shaded and I'm going to turn on headlight. That way I can see this a little bit better. What I want to do is use the scale tool, and I want to scale this out so the nice round sub D edges right here match up with the image a lot better, because right now they don't. So I'm going to go ahead and scale that up until the sides pretty much reach where the image is. And we do need to flatten this down a little bit, because if we switch to wireframe mode, it's a little bit hard to see. If I hit Control and the plus key on the number pad of the keyboard to get rid of the wireframe cage, you'll see that the top of the sphere actually goes too high up. It has to go lower. Same thing with the bottom. So what we basically need to do is flatten this sphere down. So we're going to scale it using this green handle up here. That way we can scale it downward like this and make it fit a lot better. Okay. So that's good enough. Now it doesn't have to fit perfect because the drawing itself is not perfect. So we don't have to make the sphere fit perfectly into the drawing. Just as long as we're pretty close. Okay, so that's not bad. That's pretty good right there. Okay, next thing we need to do is create this area right here, basically this little cylinder piece that pops up. And if we open up our perspective reference, we can see that's the cylinder piece right there. It's basically just a round cylindrical piece that comes up off of the body of the grenade and comes up right here. So let's go ahead and create that. So how are we going to create that? Well, fortunately, we have these polygons sitting up here on the top of our sub D that we can use for that. So what I'm going to do is hit Control and the plus key to turn on or activate the wireframe cage for my sub D here. Next thing I'm going to do is hit U on the keyboard to switch to polygon raycasting mode, and I'm going to go ahead and select all these polygons on the top. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to scale them down a little bit. So I'm going to activate the scale to X on the keyboard. I'm going to switch to global mode and activate COG. And then what I'm going to do is go in here and place my mouse cursor in between the blue and the red manipulators until you see that little yellow square in the center of the manipulator flip down like a piece of paper laying on a table. And then just left click, and to make sure you're doing this right, pay attention to the manipulator, and the red and the blue manipulators should turn yellow. So just scale this down like this to about right there is pretty good. So I'm looking at the image here while I do that. Make sure it's coming out right. And once I have that done, it's pretty simple. Just hit Control D to extrude. Activate the move tool. V on the keyboard is the shortcut for that. And then we're just going to move this up like so. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to switch from wireframe to shaded so I can see this in my side view as I do this. I'm going to bring it up to about right here. But right now, this point in the center right there is sticking up. So what I want to do is I want to actually flatten that down. So to flatten that down pretty easily, it's not hard to do at all. Just activate the scale tool and scale down in the Y-axis or the green manipulator until that gets nice and flat. Okay, so once you have that flattened down, it's actually pretty much smooth sailing from there. So I'm going to push this up to about this black line right up here. See, so this cylinder is going to go up to this point. So about to right there. And then what I'm going to do is hit E on the keyboard to switch to edge mode. And I'm going to make a selection down here in my right view. And make sure that I select all these edges right here, and that whole ring of edges. Then I'm going to right click on the object, and in my right click menu I'm going to go to split edges with split control, and I'm going to use this PPG to move the split down and close to the grenade, to the body of the grenade. And I want to make sure that it's pretty close. Something like this is pretty good. Now I'm going to hit E on the keyboard, and I'm going to go ahead and select all these edges right here, and I'm going to do the same thing. Right click, split edges with split control, and I'm going to make sure that I move this split up here really close to this top part right there. That's pretty good. Now if we do a render region here, holding down Q on the keyboard to do that, you can see the type of shape or the type of object that we're creating. So it's coming out pretty good. I'm going to hit E on the keyboard and select these edges right here in the middle. Right click, go to split edges with split control. And I'm going to move these edges up toward the top of this cylindrical piece here. Like that. Close that PPG. Okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and hit U on the keyboard to switch to raycasting polygon mode and make sure I pick these polygons on the top of this object here. And I'm going to hit Control D to extrude, activate the scale tool, and I'm going to make sure that I scale only in the blue and the red axis. That's the Z and the X, by moving my mouse cursor in between those two in the manipulator, making sure that I only move that way. Okay. Now that I did that and I expanded this out like so, I'm going to hit Control D on the keyboard to extrude again. And this time I'm going to move the extrusion up like this. And if I hit F12 down here in my side view, you can see what I'm doing here. Basically, I'm moving this new extrusion up this way like this. And I want to move it a little bit higher than the image because I want this piece to go into this metallic piece up here. So I'm going to move it up like this just a little bit so it kind of overlaps it, overshoots it by a little. I'm going to hit E on the keyboard to switch to edge mode. I'm going to select all these edges in the middle right there. I'm going to right click. I'm going to go to split edges with split control. And I'm going to move this split down like this just to get it really close to the bottom and make that nice and sharp down there. Now I'm going to go ahead and select all these edges again, right click, split edges with split control, and this time I'm going to move this split upward like this toward the top, right there, and close that PPG, don't need it. So there we go, we've got this piece going right there, so that's not looking too bad. Okay, so we got this bottom piece done. Next thing we have to do is create this entire top piece here, and if we look at our perspective reference, this is pretty much what we have to create. The handle here, the ring, and a few other little detail pieces and things like that. So we're going to go ahead and create that. Let's see what we can create it with here. We can probably use the same geometry from this object here to create that piece. And I'm going to show you how we can do that pretty easily. So let me tuck that away and hide it.